there are three constants in this world: death, taxes, and video game cover art. Video game cover arts will usually be the first thing you'll see for a console, and good cover art can lead to the console's success, while bad cover art can lead to catastrophic failure. Xbox here knows that a little too well. They've had so many failures making cover art, but it wasn't all bad. Like the OG Xbox. No, I don't mean the Xbox One. I just mean the original. The original Xbox cover art might be one of my favorite styles that a console's really ever done. First of all, you've got the just exquisite branding on the top. I know a lot of brands during this kind of era went for the black aesthetic. Xbox kind of stood it out because they put their orb logo here on the side. They have the regular logo here on the other side. It looks pretty spiffy, and most other Xbox games are going to look like this, which is good. As from a collector standpoint, you want these looking the same, or on a shelf, they can look just pretty damn bad. As I was saying, you got good branding. Most Xbox games will show that banner. Sometimes only on Xbox if it's an exclusive. And then the side is also pretty good, as you have the logo. Usually, original Xbox, they're not just like a single color. They'll have different colors for different games. It's all up to the developer. And then you have the Xbox logo there on the side, and usually these look so uniform next to each other. You have the iconic green casing. When you're in this era and you're looking for a unique video game console, PlayStation 2 and GameCube kind of blended together, and this was a good way for Xbox to just add some differences immediately so people know this is an Xbox game. This is peak Xbox cover art right here. Not too many differences usually, but even with their differences, they're very minor. Here on the original Xbox, you notice there is a little thing right below the logo. So on the original Xbox, it will have this live banner letting you know Xbox Live is enabled in these games. And it doesn't look that bad. On the front, yeah, it takes a little bit of a space than you would probably want. It'd been better if they did like a little orb here or something. But on the side, it barely is shown. It's not too anger-inducing from a collector standpoint. From a distance, you're not really going to see this anyway, and it still looks pretty good on a shelf. And then, most of the companies of the era decided to be a little bit funky. I hate this trend. For some reason, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they're all in the fault here. They decided to do these cheaper re-releases of their more popular games in a reprint form. And for Xbox, as much as I'm not a fan of it, theirs are definitely far from the worst. On Xbox here, instead of it being the black, it's a white. I'm not mad about that. Thing that I'm really annoyed about is this weird rectangle border around everything. It just, I don't know, it makes it look value brand in a way. Like some of the movies you'd see that are like, oh, this is a classic from the 80s or 70s. And they'd have this weird border around it, making it look old as hell. Mind you, this is a game released from the time of this console, and they are already making it look like it's some classic from the 40s. The spine is fine. Most games have a color spine anyway. The only difference, really, is that they changed this to white as well, which I'm fine with this. Yeah, it looks like it sticks out like a sore thumb, but it's better than other consoles and how they handled it. At least this, it's an appealing color. It's not piss yellow like the GameCube, for God's sakes. It looks pretty good for, you know, all things considered next to each other. I'd rather look at white than some obnoxious red or yellow. And the last change they did was these gray, silverish cases. They're not horrible. Well, besides mine, this one has some weird gunk on it. But from the most part, it looks fine, but it definitely looks like value brand, $20 pre-release kind of stuff, trying to make you seem that it's hype. Oh, you're getting a classic. But at the end of the day, you're just getting a cheaper version of the same game. And overall on the shelf, it does not look horrible. This is better than most consoles of that era with this kind of thing. It kind of seems like they're leading a little bit into their future a little bit with this design, because this is very reminiscent to their next console. You have the white banner up here. And they also have the white on the side as well. It really looks like their next console. Ah, yes, the Xbox 360. Yep, you can immediately see where that design for that, the Platinum Hits Xbox was coming from, or like where it was leading to. As here, you have that white banner still. Instead of the orb, they have the little Xbox trailing effects from like the intro. Determine on what copy, or like what era you got this game in. This is like a little different from my knowledge. Not too much, but for the most part, 360 games still look pretty good. They still have the iconic green case. And overall, doesn't mess with the artwork too much on the front. The banner's fine. It looks good. And on the spine, you know, it kind of looks like the Platinum Hits from the last generation. Which is not bad. But, for some weird reason, in the making of the 360, they decided, you know what, we're going to release a cross-generation game, but have it in the styling of the Xbox 360. Those games were the Burger King games you can get. I'm not exactly sure all the names. I know one's called Sneak King, but basically they're Xbox games, but in a 360 case with only Xbox branding, but because it can be played on both. They're very odd, but they're not it's not an annoying variant, and luckily it's not too annoying. A lot of the time you might not even run into the game or buy it anyway, but that is a little annoying if you are trying to go for like a full Xbox set. Speaking of that other banner from earlier, I do have an example of that I just found. It has this kind of little, it's similar to the other one where this is more greenish on it. This one kind of reflects the intro, like what's playing up here. Very similar to that, where it was a lot more, like the intro was different when the 360 launched. And this kind of reflects that. There is a difference on the side too, where it has that little swoosh, where with the original, it doesn't, and the logo is slightly brighter, darker. It's very weird. It's not too annoying when you're looking from afar, but when you're looking up close, this starts to be a worrying trend from Xbox. Them changing crap when they don't need to. But it's understandable. They were going through a rebrand, which is weird because this is the most successful time for Xbox as a brand. Doesn't make sense, but we have to go through a rebrand, guys. This is not horrible next to each other, but it leads to a worrying fate where Xbox does not respect their cover arts at all. Like their weird Platinum Hits line. For some reason, as you're seeing here, ironically both Rockstar, these are from both eras of Xbox 360 of those cover arts, but they're weirdly different at the same time. So you have the original here, you have that little swirling like with the other one, but for some reason they have this line that goes through that's so weird, saying greatness is earned. Xbox, I'm not here for your motivational quotes, I'm here to play your damn games. Get that off the freaking cover art. Platinum Hits silver is like somehow, it's like a gradient, and it's also uglier at the same time, and I don't know if it's just me, this shade of green on dark gray always just looks bad. Also, this is like this this is a weaker looking case. It does not look as good as the silver. It looks dull gray, and it just screams cheap. Like the other one was cheap, but it was more like, oh, this is like a classic from the past kind of cheap. This just screams cheap. And then the side, they made the spine longer. For some godforsaken reason, they decided, yes, with the Platinum Hits, we need to make sure you know it's only Platinum Hits. It looks so bad on a shelf next to each other. This is actually like annoying because I'm looking for a game. I might want to play GTA 4, and then I'm like, wait, this looks cheaper than hell than Fable 2. It's like they didn't care. This kind of just oversight where it's way too long. You don't have to tell us it's Platinum Hits. The color of the case in the branding of the game speak of themselves. You didn't have to do that. And then they decided, hey, let's frick up again. This time you have the green swirl. It's a little better. looking at it, it's brighter. The other one was dull and depressing for some weird reason. Now you have this gray going on the top. It does look a hell of a lot better compared to the original the original Platinum Hits. Instead of whatever stuff they had on that copy, like this one looks like infested with like way too much branding on it. Platinum Hits, Xbox Live, Rated M, Rockstar. Like, there's too much on here and it makes it look horrendous. While on the new Platinum Hits, yeah, that does look a little better. They moved the banner up to here and the banner looks a bit better. It's not as obnoxious to look at. And it does let the cover art speak a little bit more, but I wish this wasn't here entirely. We know it's Platinum Hits. You say it up here. And then on the side, they basically just made this a more appealing gray. At this point, they just dropped the silver entirely, made it gray with this weird, like, to white gradient. Platinum Hits is now, funny enough, more difficult to read on the side. And still, they have the long spine, which makes no sense. We know it's Platinum Hits. You say it, plus your case is silverish gray, which by now, if you're an Xbox gamer, would signal, yeah, this is a Platinum Hits copy. This is not needed here. It is just so annoying. Maybe we can just move on, go to the next generation, and Xbox can learn from their troubles. But weirdly, they decided to do a cross with their next console. So, I have an Xbox One copy here, and I have a 360. Why is that? When the Xbox One launched, they wanted some games playable through back compat. This would be a few years in from my knowledge, which makes it even worse. But they decided, okay, we'll re-release some games from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, but instead of making Xbox One discs, they reused, or reprinted in this case, discs from the 360. Not SSX specifically, it's just the first Xbox 360 game I grabbed, but like Fallout, Halo. They would have, there was a version that was released that was in a 360 case, but the branding on top kind of said Xbox One, which is a Xbox One. It said Xbox One, Xbox 360, which is annoying when you're trying to collect, but at least it tried to fit the 360 style, which still, it was a sore thumb for a collector. They decided to throw all of that out the window and release a version that is similar to the Xbox One, which has a overall smaller case size and thickness to the 360. So now when you're collecting 360 games and you come across, let's say, Fallout 3, it's going to say Xbox 360, Xbox One here on the top, but it's going to be in the size of the Xbox One case. Who thought that was a good idea? I understand you're trying to promote this as an Xbox One thing. Xbox One and the Xbox 360, they have two different case sets. It's not like you could almost get away with it because of how the original Xbox was similar in size. This just is a sore thumb and looks horrendous when you have the 360 versions of these. Specifically me, I don't go for those copies because they look so annoying next to each other on a shelf. Then, properly, we head to the Xbox One. Already, this is a departure from the previous generations. We have this kind of more cheaper case style they were going for. You could tell at this point they didn't care too much. Like, my copy right here is already broken of Halo 5. I've never played this game, by the way, and this was a like-new copy when I bought it, and it's already broken. So the difference is you have Xbox One on the top. For some reason they had to remind you, it was an Xbox One exclusive. You would kind of signify that because it's Halo, but okay. For the most part, the cover looks fine. It was following the trends of other companies, smaller designs. They didn't have to make it so cheap. But why did they have to make the entire side gray? This is depressing to me. I know, it looks fine on a shelf. Issue is, a lot of games use this kind of just white or gray font for their games for the logo on Xbox One through Xbox Series. And if you go a certain amount of distance away, at this point you no longer can tell this is what game it is, which is really a problem. Like, I know it's not as bad as the Switch, where you can go like 6 inches away from their games, and yeah, you can kind of see it right here, and you cannot tell what those games are. Here, it's not as bad, but it's a stupid problem why they didn't allow different colors. They were going for this gray look, which they're still kind of in. I'm not a fan. It kind of works with a certain type of green, but it also could be really obnoxious as a color scheme. And I wish they didn't go for this, because it doesn't look great. This is not bad, though, but it's a significant downgrade from the 360, at least the 360 games that looked good. And then, a certain point through the generation, we were getting close to the Series X launch. And they decided they were going to cheap out. Eventually, throughout the generation, they went cheaper on that original design. Eventually, this just became a full casing, no, like, ending where this is etched. Eventually, they kind of just did something similar to this, where it goes all the way up to the top. Presumably to cheapen the costs, which, when you're looking from a front, side by side, it doesn't look great, but it's not horrendously bad. For the most part, the side stays the same, so it's annoying, and Xbox keeps doing these annoying rebrands, don't know why, but at least it was minor. That was until the Series X came out, and they decided, oh, it can now be played on both for some of our games, so we gotta let you know. Some games, I don't have all for a certain style, but some of them are kind of like the full casing version, where it goes up to here instead of having the Xbox One here, where it would say Xbox One and Series X, and it would have like a Series X square on it. Those ones don't look horrendous. They just look confused. And from the side, it's very similar to this, but they basically just remove one off of it. For some of the games, sometimes they have it on it. It's a very annoying thing, especially when you're looking at it from a shelf. But when the Series X was coming out, they decided, okay, we'll have the Xbox One with a second revision. This is more of the revision that we see nowadays, where they'll have this little kind of cut-off banner thing up top here, and it's a little annoying, but I understand it. It's for both consoles, but it makes it even look cheaper. It looks like it's trying to be the Switch in terms of its cover art, but just worse because of this weird angle kind of branding. Plus, those are not even just logos, that's just a font they probably grabbed off of Microsoft Word. But for the most part, they're mainly the same cases as those cheapy ones they made during the Xbox One later gen. These are just so cheap and garbage that sometimes you need to collect just the cases, because you know these cases are going to break. And then on the spines, they now went fully to the end. So before, the spine would end here and you would just have the casing, almost like the PS3 style. And then they decided to bring it all the way up. Here's just that Xbox I was referring to. But it kept the same gray, so it looked like it was for the same console as the Xbox One, but also not at the same time. And now they're saying it can be played, all the games, on one console. So people are going to be inclined to collect and put all these, the Xbox One and Series X on the same shelf with each other. And then you have this horrendous garbage happening, which is like so annoying. But they decided to make it just a step more annoying from a shelf perspective, because they decided to do this. Now, I know this is Starfield, this is Series X only, but they have this new stripe on the side. It's like it's trying to do like the Wii U effect on the top, where instead of like that blue it has going up where it's printed on, they try to make it look like the casing. It's like we had a version of this where it was just the casing that was up there. Xbox could have just continued that to make it look at least presentable. And now when you have these Xbox games together, they have this weird color splotch there that is not needed. It looks bad, especially since both these games are considered Series X. So I have them next to each other, and you just see this, it does not look good. This is what angers me about Xbox. They have no quality control for their physical releases, where they just keep changing things just constantly, and eventually when we just get to Series X, they had, like I said before, a little style where it was a full banner, that on the side. Then they switched to this. Series X has been leagues better for the most part than 360 to Xbox One. But still, this is still this generic, like, Times New Roman-esque font. And it looks horrendous compared to, like, the effort they give, even just 10, 15 years ago. It just screams like Xbox no longer cares. And then they have the cheap casing again. Now on the side, it will just say Xbox for the most part. No series. They want you to think it's the same console, which is going to be a problem when we get to a third generation like this. And then they have the green stripe, which at this point makes me feel defeated with Xbox. From a collector standpoint, this saddens me. We used to have such good cover art for them. And eventually you had just this continuous downgrade where their cases and their styling got worse and worse and worse. And now we're kind of leveling out at a point where, for the most part, this is the kind of Xbox Series X game case style you're gonna see. But it wouldn't surprise me if Xbox pulls that again if they do indeed do physical on their next console. That's if. That's very much if, because I don't know if they ever will on their next. But it just does not look great on a shelf next to each other. I wish I could say differently, but honestly, at this point, Xbox is just going to do what they do. There's no point in being annoyed, because they're not going to take the criticism and fix it. So, in conclusion, the Xbox peaked with the original Xbox, let's be honest.